and I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. Today, our speaker is very eager to answer any questions you have after her presentation, and you are welcome to submit those throughout the presentation using the Q&A feature. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Clare Whitney, a licensed registered dietitian and nutritionist with Sargent Choice Nutrition Center since 2019. Clare earned a Master's of Science in Nutrition from Boston University Sargent College and completed her training at Beth Israel Lahey Health Beverly Hospital. Clare collaborates with her clients to develop a health-promoting, flexible, and sustainable eating pattern. She draws on evidence-based nutrition to support clients in eating disorders and disordered eating, chronic diseases, and related risk factors, as well as general wellness and meal planning. She partners closely with Boston University Dining Services to make sure our students receive recipes and nutrition information in the residential halls that is complete and aligned with Sargent Choice Healthy Food and Education Program. She enjoys precepting students and future registered dietitians. Clare, thank you so much for being with us and joining us. Let me hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Liliana, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, everybody, and really excited to be with you here today. So let me just go ahead and share my screen and get it into the present. Awesome. Wonderful. So welcome to the Nutrition to Support Your Lifestyle, Maximizing Nutrition and Satisfaction. As Liliana said, my name is Clare. So to get you a little bit oriented to our center, so we are the Sargent Choice Nutrition Center. We're a team of 9 registered dietitians. We're involved in many areas around campus and the greater Boston area. That includes custom workshops and seminars, individual nutrition counseling, where we have a variety of specialties, and Liliana kindly shared a few of those. Chronic disease, women's health, food allergies, intolerances, digestive conditions, eating disorders, sports nutrition, general wellness, and meal planning. So, we really cover it all. So we're kind of a one-stop shop for the nutrition counseling pieces. We support our athletic teams. We teach a variety of academic courses. We participate closely with campus dining, and we are also a teaching center. So we work with future registered dietitians and help them in their coursework. So our agenda for today, we're going to spend just a few minutes doing a brief overview. The presentation part of this should last about 50 minutes or so, and I'm going to work really hard to save those 10 minutes at the end for questions because I want to make sure to give you a chance to ask anything that's on your mind. We'll spend a bulk of our time together today on these 3 middle bullets. So reviewing the most recent dietary guidelines, as well as offering some tailored recommendations to support individuals who are nearing or at retirement age. So even if you're one of those lucky ones who retired early, there will still be something in this presentation helpful for you and hopefully some guidance that is relevant as well. We'll discuss a meal planning tool. This is one of my favorite and most passionate things that we teach here at the center, so I'm very excited to share this with you today. And then we'll spend a few minutes at the end talking about some practical applications of these guidelines, as well as the meal planning framework. I wanted to include just a brief standard disclaimer at the beginning here. So this presentation is based on nutrition research and recommendations for the general population. So it is not meant to substitute for individual medical advice, and particularly for individuals who are managing a condition or conditions. We, of course, would recommend consulting with your medical professional. I also wanted to take a moment to highlight that we will discuss today how nutrition is a powerful tool, and also want to acknowledge that it is not the only thing impacting health. Many other things play a role in supporting your health and well-being, whether that is physical or mental. So looking forward to focusing on several key areas as the topic of our presentation today. And my goal is to empower you to explore how nutrition can be supportive to your healthy retirement lifestyle. Alrighty, so starting with a 30,000-foot view. At its most basic level, food provides energy and nutrients for our bodies to perform essential functions. So that includes carrying out the work of individual organs, being maybe our heart, our lungs, our brain, as well as at the systems level with our digestive and immune systems. It also performs the cellular activity, so that would be efficient metabolic processes, healthy cell growth and division, and moderating inflammation. It helps us to maintain healthy structures, so that would be building and or maintaining functional components, being our organs, muscle, bone, and skin, and preventing either premature or accelerated breakdown of those structures. Nutrition supports us in participating in movement, so that would be activities of daily living, things like mobility, stability, non-exercise walking, stairs, cooking, showering, etc. So the things that we're doing on the day-to-day that we wouldn't necessarily classify as physical activity or exercise, but that require energy and require movement, that movement energy. And also movement that would qualify as exercise. So that could be brisk walking, gym or a fitness class, golf, swimming, biking, tennis, and everyone's favorite at the moment, which is pickleball. So just a few to highlight there. Nutrition also helps us to promote our well-being. So this could be sleep, whether that is falling asleep, staying asleep, or achieving quality sleep. Mood, ranging from keeping hunger-related irritability and fatigue at bay, to noticing how both positive and negative emotions can interact with our eating patterns. It also supports our appetite, so regulating hunger and fullness and those cues through a supportive eating pattern. So kind of a brief overview of things that nutrition does for our bodies. Now, considering the composition and timing of meals is of particular benefit and importance as we age. So prioritizing nutrient-dense foods allows you to obtain, absorb, and utilize what your body needs, maintain muscle mass, and support a well-balanced homeostatic mechanisms, being blood sugar, digestion, and weight. So a supportive nutrition pattern can help prevent or manage chronic conditions. So recognizing that our bodies change as we age, and we like to think of nutrition as a supportive tool to live well in our bodies and positively influence the conditions that may impact us as we age. Nutrition helps to decrease nutrition-related disease and mortality. So recognizing that nutrition, again, is that powerful tool to benefit in extending the length and healthy years of life. Improving quality of life. So broadly, we define quality of life as your ability to participate to your fullest in finding fulfillment and satisfaction in various aspects of life. So in addition to physical health and well-being, which is our focus today, quality of life also touches on elements such as social relationships, financial security, spirituality, religion, among others. So one of the really wonderful resources that BU is offering, I heard there's a financial workshop coming up as well. So today we will explore strategies of how nutrition can be one of the keys to maximizing your retirement years. So what does the evidence say? To compose this slide, I took a look at the dietary guidelines for Americans, and these guidelines compile evidence-based recommendations every 5 years for eating patterns that meet nutrition needs, promote health, and prevent disease at the population level. This resource highlights protective foods that most people would benefit from getting more of. So like I said, these are released every 5 years. So the most recent guidelines are the 2020 to 2025 guidelines. Next year, we'll be expecting a new version of these guidelines for 2025 to 2030, yes. So we refer to, and to kind of take a look here, the dietary guidelines are recommending that we emphasize fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean and plant protein, dairy or dairy alternatives, and then heart-healthy oils and fats. It's recommending that we moderate the amounts of intake that we get from, or rather the amounts that we're intaking of sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar. So we refer to the emphasized foods at the SCNC as our nutrition foundation foods. And then the foods that contribute higher proportions of the sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar can be referred to as, discretionary foods, maybe thoughtful eating foods. So some of the foods that maybe it's easier to consume more of than what we need, and we want to try to emphasize more of the nutrition foundation. Now, data shows that most people of any age don't get enough of these health promoting foods and would benefit from eating more of them. So when we don't get enough of what we need, especially in our modern food environment, which does not make it automatic to do so, we're at risk for getting more than what we need of certain components that are less health promoting, including those moderate foods at the bottom. So I pulled this graphic out of the dietary guidelines, and I thought it was a nice illustration, a good visual, showing various nutrition foundation food categories and the consumption patterns for each. So blue is indicating the percent of the population who are below the recommendation for a particular food or food group. Purple is indicating the percent of the population who are above the recommendation for that particular food or food group, and then this middle line is indicating what the recommendation is. So as you can see, many people are below the recommended amount of whole grains. That one is right here. You can see most people are getting less than what they need of whole grains, and very, very few people are getting more than what they need of whole grains or at the recommendation. Conversely, many people are getting above the recommended amounts of refined grains, so those that have undergone processing to remove part of the fibrous and more nutrient-dense parts of the grain. So many people are getting more than what they need of those refined grains and more than what they need of total grains. And very few people are getting less than what they need of refined grains. So you'll see also for fruits and vegetables, below and very few above. So you can kind of see the need for paying close attention and sort of being thoughtful about how we're strategizing our eating patterns and how we're building our nutrition foundation. So the takeaways that I want you to have from this first portion of the presentation, the world that we live in makes it easy to get more than what we need of less nutritious foods, harder to get enough of the health promoting foods we do need, and challenging to eat with consistency and adequacy that helps us to feel sustained energy. So what we're seeking to do is to build helpful habit-based routines that become automatic and are not easily disrupted. So at this point in the presentation, hopefully this gives you a nice orientation to the kind of status of nutrition at the population level. And you might be thinking, I've heard that I should be consuming whole grains, I've heard fruits and vegetables, but how do I actually apply that? And that's one of the really common kind of questions that we get from clients. And so this next section where we're talking about the meal planning tool, this is again, one of my absolute favorite things to share with clients. I think it is the most applicable and most effective way to implement these recommendations in a variety of different situations. So really grateful to have a chance to orient you to this today. So Meal Planning 123 is our SCNC version of, maybe you've heard of way back when was the food pyramid, and now it's My Plate. You might have heard of, the DASH approach to manage hypertension. Maybe you've heard of heart healthy eating. Maybe you've heard of the Mediterranean diet. So this is sort of our version of how to apply a framework. So it's a food first framework to build a flexible, sustainable, and satisfying health promoting eating pattern. So I kind of like to think about this tool as it ties in elements from the helpful elements from all of those different resources that are out in the world and makes it just very personalized and applicable and something that you can use when you're traveling, when you're dining out, when you're cooking at home, for meals, for snacks. So it's all encompassing in that way. Meal Planning 123 can also serve as a customizable shopping list of readily available, affordable foods. It can also serve with simple assembly served meals and snacks, dining out and travel, as I mentioned. And it's a cue to action. So it's something that after you sign off of this presentation today, maybe you're planning your lunch, maybe you're planning your dinner. I saw some folks were on the West Coast, so maybe you have a little bit more time, but kind of thinking about this as you can use this tool today, and it's something that can immediately offer some support in your nutrition pattern. So we're going to take a look first, and I should mention the 1, 2, 3 breaks down food categories into three distinct categories. So we're going to take a look first at category 1, which is energy you need right now from grains and starchy vegetables. So each category that we look at today is going to be classified based on the primary macronutrient that it delivers, as well as the timing. So about the timing that we can expect from each of these components, and then we build them together into the synergistic pattern that is supportive from a nutrition lens. So category 1 foods, you might be taking a look at this already. And so considering that these are our carbohydrate foods. So carbohydrates are the primary fuel source for our brain, our central nervous system, and our blood cells. So when I at the beginning was talking about our organs and our organ systems, the carbohydrate foods are kind of like the gas in our car. It's our primary fuel source. It's going to give our brain what it needs. It's going to give our muscles energy, and it's going to give our organs energy. So carbohydrates are in high demand. So they're highly valuable. They're also quickly utilized and quickly digested. So we would expect a carbohydrate, as we consume it, it's going to break down quickly and it's going to be used quickly. So the food sources of carbohydrate listed here are going to be our grains, so things like our breads, so bagels, bread, muffin, we have tortilla and a variety of different bread products listed. We have our cereal grains, so things like oatmeal, and we have some brand names listed here, granola. So our cereals count in this category. And then our cooked grains, so things like couscous, pasta, rice. We have noodles listed here, quinoa, and then you'll see popcorn. So popcorn is considered one of our grains as well. We also have our starchy vegetables, so that would be corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and then squashes. And so the way I want you to think about this is each food that's listed in this category is interchangeable. So you could choose to have brown rice at a meal, or you could choose to have a cereal at a meal, or you could choose to have corn or potatoes. It's all doing that same job. So it's the energy provision, quick digestion, and quick utilization. So the reason that we are highlighting, and you'll see a little caveat down here at the bottom, so whole grains are one of those components that I mentioned at the beginning that folks tend to not get enough of. So the recommendation is that about 50% plus of our grains should be whole grains. And the reason for that being, whole grains contain more fiber. So fiber is something that helps to keep us regular. It also helps to moderate cholesterol. So if we're thinking about a health promoting eating pattern that considers cholesterol management, might also help with some glycemic balance, so glycemic control. So if we're thinking about blood sugar management, so it kind of, again, ties in all of these different elements. So fiber is something we're going to get more from whole grains, as well as vitamins, minerals, and then antioxidants. So antioxidants being classified as they don't fit cleanly into a vitamin or mineral category, but they have a potential benefit for our health. So whole grains, you're going to get more of those health promoting components, and you're also going to get the benefit of the energy provision. Now, if you're choosing a refined grain, so I usually use rice as an example, we're recommending at least 50% plus whole grains. So brown rice would be considered a whole grain, as well as wild rice. If you're choosing, say, a white rice or a refined grain bread, you're still going to be getting that energy provision, but it's going to be less fibrous, less of those micronutrients, and it's not going to be quite as satiating. So just keeping that in mind as you're building your nutrition pattern. Sometimes it can be helpful to take a look at, am I meeting that 50% recommendation? Could I incorporate more whole grains? And just thinking about that as we're building our meals. So all this to say, category 1, We've got our carbohydrate energy, and it's not going to get us too far if it's consumed on its own. So if you think about, again, we'll use maybe pasta or a rice as an example. If you just had a bowl of plain pasta, no protein added to it, no vegetable, and no sauce added to, or maybe you add a sauce, but all that to say, it wouldn't get you more than about an hour, maybe 2 hours of energy, depending on the amount that was consumed. So this is where the meal planning category, we think about the other components and how we can balance those in to make a more satiating, complete, and nutrient-dense meal. Alrighty. So the category 2, now we're taking a look at our filling power foods. So filling power foods come from our non-starchy vegetables and fruits. Now the primary macronutrient that these are providing is also carbohydrate. However, the carbohydrate coming from our filling power foods is diluted by fiber and by water. So you're going to get less carbohydrate density from these foods and more filling power. So a little bit of energy and more of that satiating power. Now, thinking about the job that we're assigning our category 2 foods to do, it's not for that main energy provision. So in the last few years, you've probably seen more products coming onto the market of maybe cauliflower rice or cauliflower crust pizza. And that is a great way to get more of your filling power foods if you felt like you weren't getting enough, but it's not a great way to take the place of the job that our category 1 foods are doing. So thinking about it as we want to balance these foods together, we get a source of category 1 and we add a source of category 2, and one does not do the job of the other. So our non-starchy veggies, we have a whole list drawn out here, so you can kind of take a look through. And then same with our fruits. There's no vegetable or fruit. Sometimes this is a question clients will ask, you know, what's the best vegetable that I should eat, or what's the best fruit that I should eat? And more so, it's about identifying the fruits and the vegetables that are accessible to you and that you enjoy so that you can consume them regularly. Because every time that you're having the opportunity to add these to your meals, you're getting the benefit of not only that satiation and kind of the appetite, hunger, and fullness benefit, but you're also getting the benefit of there's a whole host of micronutrients in fruits and veggies. So again, the vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants are coming up here. So we're getting a kind of a nutrient-packed opportunity with these foods. So it's helpful to be thinking about how can I incorporate them regularly? Which ones do I like? You know, maybe something like baby carrots are really easy for you, and you can grab a handful of baby carrots, add them with your lunch. If you can do that a few times a week, that's amazing. And I wouldn't worry so much about the repetitiveness of it, but more so just consistently having a source. So all this to say, we talked about main macronutrient is carbohydrate, but it's diluted by fiber and by water. So we would expect at most a vegetable or a fruit is going to get you an hour of satiation and energy on its own. So say you had, maybe you had your breakfast and lunch is coming, you know, 3 to 4 hours later, and you start to get a little bit hungry around 10 or 11 o'clock. That's a great time to have maybe a banana or an apple or some berries, because that's going to draw the energy out by about an hour, maybe a little bit less. And then you'll be feeling, you won't be feeling overly hungry when you get to your lunch. So you can kind of think about ways to work in these foods in knowing how they function and knowing what you can expect from them. So about an hour of satiation from these foods at most. And then again, just wanting to drive home, really helpful for our vitamins, our minerals, and our antioxidants. One thing that I wanted to highlight here is potassium. So potassium is a nutrient that we get in abundance from our fruits and from our vegetables. We also can get it from dairy products and some other foods as well. But that being said, potassium is a nutrient that counterbalances the effect of sodium. So if you're thinking about the kind of peripheral benefits to building fruits and vegetables into your meal, by adding them, you're also getting the benefit of potassium, which can kind of have a balancing effect if someone struggles with maybe hypertension, or if they maybe think that they're having a higher sodium intake. Potassium is something you can add to your intake through fruits and vegetables in order to get the benefits of that and to kind of balance out the effect of sodium intake, which tends to be higher. in our population. The other thing I'll say about that is if folks are struggling with maybe a kidney condition, renal disease, that would be a situation where they want to be more cognizant about potassium intake. So again, these recommendations, I want you to hear them and kind of think about how does this affect me? What are the things that I'm considering? And hopefully it gives you some thoughts to kind of follow up with your own healthcare provider. Awesome. Usually I ask for questions in between these, so I'm kind of new to the webinar format, but feel free to keep those to the end. Alrighty, so then our third category is protein. And protein is what helps to make our meal last. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So our protein foods come from animal sources. So that would be poultry, fish, shellfish, pork, beef, and egg. Our dairy products, so that would be milk, yogurts, and cheeses. Plant proteins, so nuts and seeds, nut butters, beans, peas, and lentils. And then you'll see soy products, different soy products, and kind of bean versions of foods down here below. We also have our non-dairy alternatives. So you'll notice that I know there's a whole bunch out there on the market now, whether that's almond milk, oat milk, rice milk, you know, there's a whole variety of them. The reason that we highlight soy in particular is because of the protein quality and the protein amount. So regular dairy products have about 8 grams of protein per cup. And the only non-dairy alternative that has the same amount of protein and quality of protein is soy. So you could do the other job, I should say, that dairy does for us is for calcium and for vitamin D, both nutrients that are important as we're aging. So thinking about that as oat milk, rice milk, almond milk, they're going to be fortified often with calcium and vitamin D, so you can get that benefit from them. But say you did like a cereal, some fruit, and some almond milk in the morning, you would just want to think about a different protein source to add because you're not going to get the protein from the almond milk. Or you could switch to a soy or a regular dairy. So all this to say, we've got our protein foods, most satiating. Protein is of particular interest in an aging population, and I should say high quality proteins are of particular interest because it helps to prevent against muscle loss in addition to physical activity and maintaining our mobility, and maintaining physical activity helps to keep our muscles intact and muscle strength. But having high quality protein sources from our nutrition pattern supports us in maintaining that. So that's one thing that I wanted to highlight as well here. Okay, so we've got our protein foods. So if we're adding a protein with our meal and with our snack, this is where we're going to get the most longevity out of our meals and kind of the most balanced digestion of it. And what I mean by that is sort of the glycemic balance. We're going to get the most even blood sugar response if we're having the protein with our other components. So by adding a protein to our meal or snack, this is where we can expect it to last us about 3 to 4 hours. So I mentioned before, you know, a bowl of a whole grain cereal, maybe you add some raspberries or a different kind of fruit to that. You add some milk to that and maybe a sprinkle of nuts for some heart healthy fats. That would be a meal that could last you about 3 to 4 hours. And then again, thinking about if you start to get hungry in that space in between breakfast and lunch, think about a snack to add. You know, you could do, I mentioned a fruit beforehand. You could also add a protein of some kind with that. So maybe you do, you know, the banana that I mentioned with some edamame or something like that, or you do the banana with some peanut butter or an apple. So you can kind of think too about your own hunger and fullness cues, your own nutrition needs, and how this framework can support you in building those meals and those snacks. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that pretty much covers the protein. So I know this will be a little bit more, it's a little harder to see, but we'll be sending you this resource after the presentation today. So this you can see is meal planning 1, 2, 3 in kind of its full form. So you've got your category 1 foods, quick digesting, energy driving carbohydrates, emphasizing whole grains, and the starchy vegetables where we can. Filling power from our non-starchy veggies and fruits helps us to feel full and feel satisfied and provides that additional micronutrient provision. And then we've got our protein, which makes our meal last. It's going to help us to feel satisfied for a longer period of time. It's going to help us to maintain our muscle mass, and it is often one of the more delicious parts. So that's a great thing as well. And I'll note too, we have some additional lines listed here for if maybe there's something that you don't notice listed here that you'd want to add in. A great place for a registered dietitian to provide support if you're kind of looking in your pantry, looking at your typical shopping patterns and intake patterns and thinking, where would this fall? Definitely a great place to seek out some support. That's meal planning 1, 2, 3. And then for flavor, variety, and enhanced nutrition, we're considering the addition of heart-healthy oils. So particularly calling out olive oil because that's been studied in healthy cognition and memory health. So kind of cooking with our oils, adding flavor through oils. One of the interesting things that I like to call out here is that we actually require fats to absorb a lot of the nutrients that we get from category 2. So there's a nutrition reason why you would want to cook, say, your broccoli in olive oil, and then you're adding herbs and spices for flavoring, because you're going to get more out of the vitamins A, D, E, and K from our oils. So this is where I start to talk in more detail, and I'm going to try to keep it at the surface, but just love talking about these elements. But all this to say, you're going to get more out of the micronutrients if you're cooking and incorporating oils into your meals. And then hydration. So I wanted to briefly highlight hydration because hydration can impact our appetite. It can impact our taste experience. So if we're dehydrated, we're not going to get as enjoyable of an experience out of our meals. Hydration is also very important for injury prevention for active folks. It's important for our brain health. It's important for our cellular health. So I just included a bullet about hydration because in addition to this meal planning framework, hydration is a super supportive and helpful element to be including here. Alrighty. So that is, in summary, these foods help to provide essential macronutrients as well as micronutrients and supportive components such as fiber and antioxidants to ensure that our energy intake meets our needs and helps us to not exceed our needs, and enough of the nutrients that promote healthful functioning. Alrighty, so I wanted to also call out specifically nutrition and cognitive health. I know this is a topic of great interest and conversation. So in the context of meal planning 1, 2, 3, I wanted to call out specifically this topic falls within the dietary guidelines and our meal planning tool, but isn't specifically highlighted. So just wanting to call this out. So healthy cognition involves memory, learning, language, attention, and perception, as well as our healthy brain supporting more peripheral functions such as our balance and our flexibility. So nutrition can support us in this area as well. Several lines of evidence suggest that a balanced, varied diet helps to mitigate degenerative processes associated with age and reduce the risk of brain disease. So nutrition as a tool to support healthy cognition and a healthy brain. I called out a few specific foods here, and I'm calling them high-yield investments. I thought that in this particular population, I'm sure that you've done a lot of financial planning over the years to get to this point of retirement, and you've thought carefully about how to maximize each dollar you save for that retirement and get the most out of growth in your dollar. So I'm using that as a helpful frame to think about the compounding benefit you get from including health promoting foods over time. So every dollar you save might not feel like a lot at the moment, but over time that grows and grows and compounds, and it gives us this wonderful benefit at the end. So similarly with nutrition, every time you make a choice to include a whole grain, to include nuts or olive oil, fruits and vegetables, and seafood, you're investing in your health, you're investing in that wellness over time, and creating a strong nutrition foundation to be like a high yield savings account. So we won't spend too much time here, but I wanted to just give you a visual of what I mentioned with the timing of meal planning 1, 2, 3. So for most people, the first eating occasion is ideal within 2 hours of waking. And then every 3 to 4 hours following, considering meal planning 1, 2, 3 in your eating occasions. So if you wake up at 6 or 7, by say 8 or 9 o'clock, striving to have that first eating occasion, and then every 3 to 4 hours after, considering how you can work in meal planning 1, 2, 3, and then thinking about how snacks might benefit in between. The hunger fullness scale, again, just briefly to touch on this, and there's so many levels and so much depth that we could dive into with each of these topics, but this is meant to be a visual of what can kind of happen with our different hunger and fullness sensations. So if we're not responding to hunger in a timely manner, and say you had that breakfast at 7 or 8 o'clock, and then you have a busy day, it gets to be 1, 2, and you haven't had something to eat since then, you're outside of that 3 to 4 hour framework, and we would expect that you're probably past the point of hunger at that point in time, so kind of in this very hungry, starving state. It's helpful to remember that there is usually an equal and opposite reaction, and this is not the case for everybody, but there is often an equal and opposite reaction if we get to this very hungry, starving place. When we do have our next eating occasion, one, we might not be able to think as consciously about the choices that we're making, but also the amount that we're going to need to consume to feel satiated. Equal and opposite would be eating until we're very full and stuffed. So kind of keeping that in mind of the meal planning 1, 2, 3 components, as well as the timing, are very helpful and impactful in keeping us a little bit more in the gentle zone of the middle of this graphic. So responding to hunger sooner allows the equal and opposite reaction to kind of swing gently between being hungry, being full, checking in when we begin to feel hungry, being able to register when we begin to feel full. So kind of just keeping in mind how the timing can impact our eating patterns as well. Great. So empowered to notice these things. I know it's a lot of different elements, considerations to take in, but I hope these tools will be helpful to kind of begin or continue on this journey for yourself. Alrighty, so we've got here applying the framework, and I'm doing pretty good on time. So navigating our new routines and seeking satisfaction, I wanted to take a few slides to highlight the maybe some of the additional layers of consideration in a nearing retirement or retirement population in order for you to get the most out of these tools. So first being budget. So budget is I have highlighted a few bullets here. So the idea being we want to help you to maximize your budget. We also want your nutrition pattern to feel solidified within your personal budgetary needs as well as nutrition needs. So one element that can be supportive there is planning to minimize waste. So planning meals in advance helps to make sure that you're shopping for groceries accordingly, that you're thoughtful about how you'll use foods before they go bad, and just kind of taking into account what you're purchasing is matched with what you're using, and you're able to do that consistently. The first tool that I've listed here would be a kitchen inventory. So that would involve shopping your pantry, fridge, freezer, and cabinets first before going to the store. And this is a practice that a lot of my clients find really meaningful, because they might kind of ignore the things that are in the back of their pantry, in the back of their freezer, in the back of their fridge. And by taking kind of that those few minutes to make a list, and a lot of times I'll have people write it down, maybe on paper, maybe on their phone. What do I already have? And you can use the meal planning 1, 2, 3 framework to say, okay, so for grains, I have a bag of rice in the pantry. I have some boxes of pasta. I have some, maybe a half a bag of potatoes or something like that. So you can start to build your meals for the following week based on what you've already got in your kitchen. I always recommend using carryover perishable items first. So say you have maybe some leafy greens from last week that you'll want to use, if you shop on Sunday or Monday, you'll want to use, maybe by Tuesday or Wednesday, so that you're making sure to kind of cycle those through. And then working in pantry staples, like I mentioned. So considering then convenience versus scratch foods. So convenience foods, things like pre-cut vegetables, pre-marinated proteins, might be a little bit more costly up front, but it might make it more realistic for you to regularly consume those health promoting foods, and may also reduce waste generated by the barrier of longer prep and cooking time that happens with scratch versions. So an example of this, seafood is one of the foods that I called out for cognitive health. Seafood is a really wonderful one because it contains omega-3s, and specifically marine omega-3s that are challenging to get from other places in our diet. So if you're someone who doesn't often cook fish or seafood at home, maybe you're not super comfortable preparing it, to buy a convenience version of, a pre-marinated fish at the seafood counter might be a little more costly up front. It's definitely still less expensive than ordering out. And again, it might help you to more regularly incorporate that into your pattern. And who knows, it might even build some confidence around, okay, I made the pre-marinated version for the last few weeks. Maybe I want to try a version that is a little bit less expensive and is a little more effort on my part. Considering travel and social plans, so thinking too, am I going to be dining out with friends later this week? Am I going to be away for the weekend? So some of those considerations in your shopping and in your cooking planning. Comparing prices, so maybe you're used to buying certain brands or shopping at a particular store. So sometimes it can be helpful to take some time to look at the prices and also the unit prices. So like the price per ounce or the price per pack. And taking a look at that can sort of drive you towards the most budget conscious version of the item that you're looking to purchase. Buying selectively in bulk, so it might be helpful to purchase high use or non-perishable items such as grains, beans, and frozen items in bulk to save money in the long run. But just being cognizant of if it's a 10 for 10 deal and you won't use all 10, it might not be the best to purchase that in the bulk version. Fresh, frozen, and canned. So another thing I always like to call out here is that frozen and canned vegetables retain the amount of nutrients that are in the fresh version, and sometimes even more because they're frozen or canned at the peak of their ripeness. So I think oftentimes frozen and canned don't get the best rep, but just recognizing that fresh, frozen, canned, they're all nutritious versions, and it's all about what's accessible to you and what's realistic to consume. Prioritizing foundation. So this is thinking about, how much of my grocery budget is going towards my nutrition foundation foods, how much is going towards maybe more of those discretionary foods, and kind of thinking about how to strategize for prioritizing that foundation within your own personal budget. I included a recipe resource here. I love Budget Bites. It's an awesome, and it's a hyperlink. So with the slides, you should be able to click into that. But they do approximate cost for the different ingredients. And it's a really nice way to kind of see like, oh, an inexpensive version of a frittata or maybe a dish that I wanted to prepare. So that is an excellent resource that you could either Google or get through this presentation. Alrighty, food preparation. So considering your desire to cook. So again, thinking about, are you someone who shops every week and then ends up ordering out? Or are you someone who shops and then ends up going out? So thinking about, or letting things go bad, I should say, before being able to cook them. So doing kind of this honest assessment of, is it realistic for me to be cooking right now? How do I want to strategize to be meeting my nutrition needs within the parameters of the time and energy I have for food preparation? Different appliances and cookware can be supportive in reducing the effort for food preparation. So things like a slow cooker, a crock pot, and a blender are excellent tools that can create a variety of different things. So maybe you could make some breakfast in the slow cooker. You could also make soups, stews, casseroles, lots of different things. Low prep convenience foods. So again, considering the slightly higher cost up front, but then that gives you the opportunity to have less food preparation effort. So I gave an example of some parboiled minute rice, brown rice, some cooked shrimp, and then a salad kit would be a meal planning 1, 2, 3 meal with convenience foods. Meal delivery services. So there are a couple different versions of these types of services. There are some that have the ingredient box that they mail you the box and then you prepare the ingredients. So that might be like a home chef or a Blue Apron type of approach. There's also fully prepared heat meat meals. So that is a little bit more, if you're using meal planning 123, one that comes to mind that's local to the Boston area is Feast and Fettle. And Feast and Fettle, we don't have any association with them, but it is a really nice company. They offer the heat and eat meals where you can go through and you can choose your protein, choose your grain, choose your vegetable. And that is sort of in a fully prepared version that you don't have to assemble on your own. And then utilizing the freezer. So thinking about if you are now cooking for 1 or 2 people, having quality food storage. I like to recommend the glass food storage because you can do freezer to oven in that case. So maybe you make, a casserole or you make a dinner and you want to cook once and eat it multiple times. That can go in your freezer, and then you can, if it's glass, you can just take it, make sure that it's oven safe, pop it right in the oven, and then heat that up from frozen. And then adaptability. So thinking about an anti-fatigue cushion, something like squishy that you could stand on in your kitchen if you're noticing fatigue in food preparation. Kitchen organization, so making sure that your commonly used items are well within reach. Considering any adaptive utensils and tools that might be helpful. So a comfort grip, I did like a comfort grip can opener, and there's a variety of different models for this type of tool, can and jar openers. And then considering other disciplines that can be supportive. So, things like physical therapy, if there are some of these physical challenges, and then occupational therapy, if it would be helpful to consider, some of these more like in-life application tools and challenges that you'd like some support in working through. All right. So taste and sensory changes. In the interest of time, just very briefly recognizing that taste and senses can change as we age. So thinking about different ways that we can enhance our eating experience without relying on just components like added sodium and added sugars. So thinking about experimenting with different cooking methods and seasonings, playing around with different textures. Maybe now that the warmer weather is hopefully coming soon, we're looking for some, cool, crispy, crunchy type of things versus warm and sort of like savory versions that maybe we would get more in the winter. Staying hydrated is a big one, as I mentioned, enjoying social dining, and then seeking support where is needed. And that could be from a dietitian, it could be from a speech pathologist, it could be from a trusted friend or family member or a medical doctor. And then last but not least, well, second to last but not least, is reasons to see a dietitian. So like I said, there are just so many elements to this, and I hope that this presentation gets you excited about nutrition. I hope this jogs, some ideas and some questions in your mind. So just wanted to remind you that a dietitian can be a supportive person in your healthy eating retirement journey. So you can see kind of the variety of reasons that you might seek support from a dietitian, and definitely encouraging you to do that if you feel interested in doing so. And I wanted to leave you with our Sargent Choice whole grain peanut butter cookie recipe. So this is our director created this recipe, and it was sort of the reason that we created our center. So she had started this recipe, and the dining services made it, and then Sargent Choice kind of bloomed out of it. So you can see we're substituting in the whole grains through the whole wheat flour and the oats. We have our unsaturated heart healthy fats through peanut butter and olive oil. And we also have nuts for that too. And then we've got our protein from eggs. So this is kind of a nice, hopefully a recipe that you can try with family and friends. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Claire. A number of questions came in, and if we cannot get to all of them, I want to assure you that Claire will answer them, and we will send it in a follow-up with the link to the recorded video. One thing that came up, Claire, was you mentioned hydration a lot, so thank you for that, because that came up a couple of times. Are Impossible Burgers considered a good plant-based alternative? Was one question that came up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So Impossible Burgers, to my knowledge, use a soy protein. So when I was talking about the quality and the amount of protein, soy tends to be comparable to the amount that you would get from, beef protein or another animal protein. So in terms of protein quality and amount, it tends to be almost a one-to-one. So I think in that nutrition sense, if we're thinking about meal planning 1, 2, 3, that can be a nice substitute. I think people have different goals, different reasons for choosing these types of things. So there might be more elements and kind of more layers to it that you're curious about. But I'd say the first and foremost is that I think the highlighting that the protein is about equal, and that can be considered to be a high quality protein source for meal planning 1, 2, 3.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now,
Yeah.
there's a concern about sarcopenia, and this is a 5'9", 180 pound male with moderate physical, activity. How much grain of protein would you suggest?
Yeah. So sarcopenia, I believe referring to the skeletal muscle loss that can happen over our aging process. So off the top of my head, the math, I wouldn't be able to kind of spit that right out for you, but I can say the recommendation tends to be between 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, so not per pound, but between 0.8 grams per kilogram, and I believe it's 1.2 grams per kilogram. So that would be a great reason to see a registered dietitian, is to kind of find what the recommendation would be within that range, but that tends to be the accepted range for protein amount for older adults.
Good. And then let's go ahead and do a couple of others. How can you reach the 5 minimum of veggies and fruits per day? Not easy is one thing that was said in the comments.
Definitely, definitely. So first, helpful to keep in mind, 5 is for both fruits and vegetables, and we break that down to be 2 servings of fruit per day and 3 servings of vegetables per day to meet the recommendation. So I hear you. It definitely is a challenge to do that. And so I kind of think about this as 2 nutrition opportunities to include fruit throughout your day. So maybe that would be with a meal. So I think oftentimes breakfast is a helpful place for people to consider adding a fruit. And then maybe with a snack at some point in your day. That could be a mid-morning snack, an afternoon snack, or even an evening snack. So kind of thinking of those 2 opportunities to include some fruits. And then for a lot of folks, what can also work well for the vegetables is like a 1.5 cup serving at lunch and a 1.5 cup serving at dinner. Again, that's a more general recommendation. People might have different needs and sort of tolerances for the amount of vegetables, but sometimes that can be a nice split of like 1.5 cups at lunch, 1.5 cups at dinner. And then you're meeting your 3 vegetables and your 2 fruits.
Awesome. Let's take one more. Would you address timing and selection of foods around exercise?
Great question. So timing and selection of foods. So if you're doing 60 minutes or less of physical activity, your general nutrition foundation should kind of cover that physical activity that you're doing. If you're doing over 60 minutes of physical activity, again, another great kind of one-on-one conversation. But what we can think about is a carbohydrate before your activity, and then a protein with a little carbohydrate after your activity. So you can kind of think about bookending: carbohydrate before, protein primarily, and some carb after. And then if you're more of like, maybe you're training for a marathon, maybe you're doing, longer biking, usually we'll say it's like 90 minutes or above, and that's off the top of my head. You might want to think about during activity fuel. So maybe, doing some dried fruit or energy chews or a Gatorade or something like that during. So it kind of depends on the type of activity, but those maybe are helpful parameters for under 60 minutes or under. You should be covered by your general pattern, and then thinking about the before, during, and after if you're doing more intensive.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire, so much for your presentation today and for providing techniques to personalize our meals and snacks, ensuring they meet our nutritional requirements and maximize our satisfaction. On behalf of the STAR Network and BU Alumni Association, we so appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you
also
all.
want to thank all of you for joining us, especially those of you who continue to support our students and the university through your donations. Remember, April 3rd is Giving Day and an opportunity to have your donations doubled. The STAR Volunteer Advising Council is pleased to announce the launch of the pilot of the Terrier to Terrier Alumni Retirement Mentoring Program pilot. To learn more about the pilot, please email or connect with me through BU Connect's Star Network. To join the Star Network, log in or sign up through buconnects.com. By joining the Star Network, you get the first notification of our upcoming events and the opportunity to make suggestions. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a great day or great evening wherever you might be. All the best.